everybody. If you've gotten this far into the show, this is the season finale. I have to let you know. I just want to explain that a little bit later. But first of all, thank you for the support. If you are watching this and out of order, please go to my channel and watch the rest of the videos. They're all very informative. They're all very entertaining. I have to say that, it's been a good run for me to do this. I wanted to do the show and keep it running, but there are two main reasons why I haven't. The reason for that is because I ran out of ideas, basically. Because there's only really a finite number of things that I can do on my own. And because of the quarantine, I'm isolated from the rest of the world, the outside world, so I can't play stuff. I can't perform with my bandmates. I have a band, by the way, info in the description. And I can't roll or use a live training partner to demonstrate my jiu-jitsu moves. So those are the things that I'm looking for next season. I also ran out of ideas that, for solo stuff. Let's be honest, there's not a lot of things you can do on your own. As much as I consider myself an introvert, I realize a lot of the stuff that I love to do really depends on a lot of other people. Like playing in a band or training. So that's something. The funny thing about this show is that it started out as an idea for me to do a podcast talking for about 10 to 15 minutes about how to prepare for competition, things about, jiu-jitsu related mental stuff. Then it evolved to I wanted to find a way to showcase my bass playing in a way where I know that I'm not the best bass player out there, because if you search YouTube, there's a lot of bass players that are much, much better than I am. But I want to watch myself get better during the time of my show. And so this is sort of a thing that I thought to myself that would be I would like to showcase stuff that I know online. And this is how the Jiu-Jitsu Bassist show came about. I've been planning to do this kind of program for many years now. But the thing is, the quarantine and the free time that was brought about by this quarantine really allowed me to get off my ass and start doing stuff. And that makes me that I consider is a blessing in disguise. Even despite the fact that the rest of the world is suffering, I find it to be a blessing in disguise for myself. I finally get to go, after 3 years, I finally get to do this. The other blessing in disguise brought about by this is that I found out a lot of new uses for my phone. Because the other reason why I wanted to keep this in a seasonal thing and have to take a break from it is that I did inventory of what I have right now, and I feel that what I had before the lockdown started wasn't enough. But I find a way to do it anyway. All episodes shot, including this one, were shot on my phone and edited on my phone and uploaded to YouTube on my phone. So at least I found a new use for my phone. But I was planning to upgrade before the lockdown started, and I wasn't able to do it in time. So next season, what you should look out for is a better production value. And probably I'm trying to bring in a live training partner to demonstrate. And better editing software, and better options for editing software, and a few other things that I can do to upgrade the whole show. Once again, guys, thank you very much for partaking in the show. Very grateful. Please like and subscribe. pretty sure people want to know is, why did I choose to play the bass? Well, it's very simple, really. I use it as a joke, but it's really not a joke. When I was growing up, I knew a lot of people who wanted to be in a band. But everybody wanted to be the drummer or the guitar player or the singer, but nobody really wanted to be a bassist. That's why I chose it. I chose bass. It's because nobody else was doing it, and that I had a better chance of becoming a bass player, being part of a band if I played the bass. Simple, really. But one thing that people have to understand is that, like, I genuinely love the bass. I mean, if you've ever heard a song with an amazing bass line, it moves you. And if you heard the same recording, you took out the bass, it completely changes the dynamic of the song. Bass is not quote unquote easy guitar. It's not like, oh, I have to play chords. Well, you just play the root notes. It's not as simple as that, because the bass can change the whole song. Like, imagine if instead of playing the root notes of the chord that you're playing, the bass player plays something that's within the chord instead of the root, plays a third or a fifth. The song changes completely. So that's pretty important as well, because it's driving force of the rhythm of the song. I genuinely love the bass. That if it was in the position where I had to sell my soul, and I had to choose to have like awesome shred guitar skills or be an awesome bass player, I'd still choose to be an awesome bass player, to be honest. Not a lot of people would. If people were to sell their soul and given that option, whether they could be the best bass player or the best guitar player, people would choose to be the shredder, the guitar shredder. Nobody really wants to play the bass. And I think that's the reason why, and I've had this conversation before, about why the level of bass playing, specifically here locally in the Philippines, isn't that great. Because a lot of bands' bass players are guys who were the extra guitar player. And a lot of people think about the other thing I said about how the bass is just an easy guitar. And say like, oh, I'm a guitar player, I don't need to get better at bass because I'm really good at, I'm already a guitar player, I don't need to get better at bass, And so when they play very simply, and as long as they don't mess it up too bad, it's okay. We don't have people who really want to become better bass players. And that's why the level is still a little bit not great right now. But hopefully people start loving the bass the way I love the bass, because I want to become a really great bass player. I really do. That's basically why I became a bass player, because bass is awesome. Hello, it's me again. The other topic I wanted to talk to you about today in this episode is I'm 39 years old. I'm a brown belt and I compete still, and I train hard for Jiu-Jitsu. So I wonder and here's some observations that I came up with. When you're almost 40 or 40 and above, about in Jiu-Jitsu, how to survive how to survive as an older grappler, which is normally the threshold for being considered an older grappler is 40. I'm close to that. I'm 39. But my advice for older grapplers is actually to just know your limits and what you can do. It's like, oh, I am very good at this, I'm not very good at that. Let's try not to use the thing that I'm not good at. Like, oh, I'm a big ultra heavyweight guy, I'm not gonna do inverted stuff. It just doesn't work. That's just not physically possible. Let's not force it, because let's be honest, as an older grappler, if you force yourself to do stuff like that, you'll just end up hurting yourself. My second advice is that you have to train smarter, not harder. Training hard, it says it on my shirt, it says porrada. Porrada is Brazilian Portuguese for a struggle or a fight, like a really hard fight. For people who are my age and above, we can't do that every day anymore. In fact, our definition of porrada is, surviving. So instead of like doing, attacking, or trying to keep pace with these young guys, you have to slow it down. You have to slow down young guys. I always said to like a lot of people who I've had the privilege of coaching over the course of time, I said, hey, listen, the best thing for you to do if you're a big guy and you're going up against a small, fast guy is you gotta slow him down. Because you can slow a fast guy down, but you can't keep up with him if you're not that fast. It's just not natural. So that's training smarter. So slow down your opponent. Don't try to keep pace with the young guys. Work on the things that you can work on, like the previous advice. Like if you know that this young guy is going to be running circles around you, work on your defense. Work on not getting submitted. Work on flustering them. Because when your opponent, regardless of what age you are and what age they are, if an opponent gets flustered or a training partner and a rolling partner gets flustered, they tend to slow down. Because they have to slow down, take a step back, and find out, what am I doing wrong? So that's one thing. Just fluster them. And my last piece of advice, actually it's only 3 pieces of advice, is very, very simple, and it's a little bit controversial. This is because this is only for colored belts, so that's blue and above, where it's perfectly legal, I think. But before you do this advice, make sure that it's cool with your instructor, your head instructor, that you do this stuff while you're rolling. And so this advice is just to be a little dirty. Now, I'm not saying you should start grinding your elbow on people's faces or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying or cranking the neck or fish hooking or eye gouging. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that let's do some prison rules, like wrist locks. Okay, wrist locks have had a bad rap because wrist locks are are considered cheap moves. But let's be honest, they're legal from blue belt onward. So you can use them. It will slow down a lot of people regardless of what their age is, if you could use something like a wrist lock. And then if they defend it, they tend to leave something out there for you to take, something else for you to take. So then you'd be creating a dilemma by setting up a wrist lock. It's a bit dirty, but because you're a little slower, you gotta be a little bit more wily. Like I said, instead of training hard, train smart.